The sun dipped low, casting a radiant glow of crimson, saffron, and molten gold across the boundless savanna of Barbed National Park in Namibia. Golden grasses swayed gently in the warm evening breeze, stretching endlessly toward the horizon in a mesmerizing display of untamed beauty. Within this serene yet wild expanse, a pride of lions, led by a commanding male named Django and accompanied by 10 lionesses, moved with silent precision. Django's mane, a deep russet that shimmered in the twilight's fiery hues, framed his chiseled face as he guided the pride with unwavering authority. His piercing amber eyes scanned the vast plain, ever vigilant for signs of prey, while the lionesses, sleek and alert, trailed closely, their senses sharpened by every rustle in the undergrowth. Barbed was a vibrant tapestry of life, teeming with herds of impala, towering elephants, and elusive caracals that melted into the tall grass. Yet beneath its splendor lurked a persistent danger. Poachers, driven by the illicit trade in pangolin scales and elephant tusks, haunted the park, scattering lethal snares among the roots and bushes. Unaware of the hidden perils, Django's pride ventured deeper into a grove of marula trees, their focus locked on the faint scent of a nearby buffalo herd. As they navigated the dense foliage, Django's nostrils flared, detecting a sharp, unnatural odor, something metallic, alien to the savanna's earthy aroma. Guided by instinct, he broke away from the pride to investigate, his massive paws treading lightly on the soft, loamy ground. In an instant, a searing pain tore through his foreleg. A steel trap, camouflaged beneath a layer of leaves and twigs, snapped shut with ruthless force. Django's roar thundered across the savanna, a primal cry that shook the air as his body collapsed, the trap's jagged teeth sinking deeper into his flesh. The lionesses, startled by the sound, raced to his side, their eyes wide with panic and confusion. They formed a tight circle around their leader, their low growls mingling with anxious whines. Django clawed at the earth, desperate to free himself, but the trap's grip tightened, blood pooling beneath him and staining the ground. Built to ensnare larger game, the device was far too powerful for even a lion's strength to overcome. Hours dragged on, each moment heavier than the last. Django's roars softened to ragged groans, his energy draining with every labored breath. The lionesses stood resolute, their loyalty unwavering as the sun slipped below the horizon, cloaking the savanna in a deep indigo dusk. Their helplessness gnawed at them, but they refused to abandon their leader, their eyes gleaming with fierce determination in the fading light. The air grew cool, the marula trees whispering in the evening breeze. Suddenly, a foreign sound pierced the stillness, a low mechanical rumble, out of place in the wild. It was the engine of a weathered land cruiser, driven by Thandi, a seasoned ranger who patrolled Barbed's rugged trails. She was nearing the end of a grueling shift, her body weary from hours under the relentless sun, when a faint, anguished growl reached her ears. She slammed on the brakes, her pulse quickening, and grabbed her flashlight. Stepping out, she swept the beam across the grove until it caught the glint of steel and the massive form of Django, his leg ensnared, his chest heaving with exhaustion. Behind him, the 10 lionesses crouched, their eyes glowing like lanterns in the dark, assessing Thandi's every move. Thandi's heart sank. She recognized the trap instantly, a poacher's cruel contraption, designed for larger prey, but deadly to any creature caught in its jaws. Night was closing in fast, and she was alone, miles from the ranger outpost. Calling for backup wasn't an option. Poachers often returned under cover of darkness to claim their prizes, and Django's life hung by a thread. Her mind raced, but her resolve hardened. She had to act, and she had to act now. Reaching into the land cruiser, Thandi pulled out a tranquilizer dart but hesitated. Django's breathing was shallow, his strength nearly spent. Sedation could push him over the edge. Instead, she raised her empty hands, palms open, and took a slow step forward. The lionesses growled, their muscles coiled, but Thandi's voice was calm, almost soothing. "Easy now. I'm here to help." Django's eyes, clouded with pain, locked onto hers. For a fleeting moment, the savanna seemed to hold its breath, the tension thick and palpable. The lead lioness, a fierce female with a scarred flank and a notched ear, stepped forward, her growl softening but her stance firm. Thandi took it as permission. Kneeling beside Django, she examined the trap. The steel was rusted, its chain anchored deep into the ground, and Django's leg was swollen, the wound raw and oozing blood. Her hands trembled as she touched the cold metal, but she forced herself to focus, her heart pounding in her chest. Murmuring soft words of reassurance, more to steady her own nerves than for the lion, Thandi gripped the trap's jaws. They were slick with blood, her fingers slipping as she struggled for leverage. Django hissed, his body tensing, but he didn't strike. The lionesses watched, their tails flicking nervously, poised to spring if Thandi faltered. Time stretched, each second a battle against Django's fading strength. Thandi's arms burned, her breath coming in sharp bursts. She wedged a sturdy branch into the trap's mechanism, using it as a lever, and pushed with every ounce of her strength. With a tortured groan of metal, the trap finally sprang open. Django roared, a sound of raw liberation that echoed through the grove. He lurched to his feet, his injured leg trembling but free. Thandi stumbled back, her heart hammering as the lionesses surged forward, nuzzling their leader with soft, rumbling purrs. Blood still trickled from Django's wound, but he was alive. Thandi didn't pause. She dragged the trap to her land cruiser, tossing it into the back to ensure it could harm no more, then returned with a battered first aid kit. Kneeling at a cautious distance, she cleaned the wound with antiseptic, her movements slow and deliberate under the lioness's watchful gazes. "You're a fighter, aren't you?" she whispered, wrapping Django's leg in clean gauze. The pride remained still, their trust in her fragile but holding. When she finished, Thandi administered a mild stimulant to aid Django's recovery, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As she packed her tools, the savannah was now steeped in twilight, the air heavy with the scent of marula fruit and earth. Django stood taller, his russet mane catching the last glimmers of light. The lionesses formed a protective circle around him, their bond unbroken. Thandi climbed into her land cruiser, her chest tight with a mix of relief and awe. As she turned the key, Django's head swiveled, his amber gaze locking with hers. It was a quiet, profound acknowledgement, a moment that felt like a bridge between their worlds. Thandi drove away, the land cruiser's headlights slicing through the gathering dark. In her rearview mirror, she glimpsed the pride melting into the grasslands, Django's limp less pronounced with each step. The night enveloped them, but Thandi carried a warmth in her heart that lingered long after she reached the ranger station. Days turned to weeks, and Thandi's routine resumed. Patrols, reports, and the relentless fight against poaching. But something had changed. Each time she passed the marula grove, she slowed her vehicle, her eyes scanning the horizon for the pride. One evening, as the sky blazed with hues of orange and violet, she saw him. Django, his mane unmistakable, stood on a gentle rise, watching her land cruiser. The lionesses flanked him, their postures relaxed yet vigilant. Thandi stopped, her hands resting on the wheel. Django didn't approach, but he didn't retreat either. They held each other's gaze across the vast savannah, a silent understanding passing between them. Then with a low chuff, Django turned and led his pride into the tall grass, his limp now barely noticeable. The sightings became a quiet ritual. Every few days, Django would emerge, shadowing the land cruiser at a distance before vanishing into the wild. Thandi began to see it as his way of expressing gratitude, a wordless pact forged in that desperate moment. Each encounter renewed her resolve, a reminder of why she dedicated her life to Bwabwata's creatures. But Django's story didn't end there. Word of his rescue spread like wildfire among the rangers, then to the villages bordering the park. Thandi's courage sparked a wave of action. Local elders, once skeptical of the park's efforts, began sharing intelligence about poacher movements, leading to the arrest of a notorious smuggling ring. Rangers doubled their patrols, dismantling scores of traps and confiscating illegal weapons. The park's director, moved by Thandi's story, secured funding for advanced tracking equipment, including motion sensor cameras that made it harder for poachers to evade detection. One crisp morning, as Thandi drove her usual route, she noticed something new near the marula grove, a sturdy iron sign erected by her fellow rangers. It read, "Django's Haven, Guardians of Bwabwata." Beside it, A pile of confiscated traps and snares stood as a stark warning to poachers. Thandi's eyes welled up, a proud smile spreading across her face. Django's pride had become a symbol of resilience, a beacon of hope for the park's future. Months later, Thandi received an unexpected invitation to speak at a regional conservation summit in Windhoek. Standing before a crowded auditorium, she shared Django's story, not just the rescue, but the bond that grew from it. She spoke of the pride's unwavering loyalty, of Django's quiet gratitude, and of the delicate balance between humanity and nature. The audience was captivated, some moved to tears. Her words sparked a surge of donations to Bwabwata, funding new ranger outposts, veterinary programs, and community education initiatives to protect the park's wildlife. Back at Bwabwata, Thandi's patrols continued, each one a testament to her unyielding commitment. One evening, as she navigated the savannah under a sky streaked with pink and gold, she spotted Django's pride in the distance. This time, there was something new. 5 tiny cubs, their fluffy coats catching the light as they tumbled playfully among the lionesses. Django stood watch, his scarred leg a badge of survival, his presence a quiet promise of the pride's enduring strength. Thandi's heart swelled. The pride was thriving, a living legacy of that fateful night. Django's story took on a life of its own. Inspired by Thandi's actions, a group of local artisans began crafting lion-themed sculptures from reclaimed wood, with proceeds supporting anti-poaching efforts. School children in nearby towns learned about Django in their classrooms, their essays and drawings celebrating the lion who defied death. A documentary crew visited Bwabwata, capturing footage of the pride in Thandi's work, which aired globally and brought international attention to the park's conservation efforts. The film won awards, further amplifying the message of coexistence and stewardship. But the impact reached even further. Thandi's story caught the attention of a young filmmaker from Swakopmund, who produced a feature-length documentary titled Django's Triumph. The film chronicled the rescue, the pride's recovery, and the broader fight to protect Bwabwata's wildlife. It premiered at an international film festival, then streamed globally, inspiring millions to support conservation efforts. The documentary led to partnerships with global NGOs, bringing in resources for habitat restoration, ranger welfare programs, and youth education initiatives. Bwabwata became a model for community-driven conservation, with neighboring parks adopting similar strategies. The ripple effects continued to spread. Thandi's bravery inspired the creation of a regional conservation network, uniting rangers, scientists, and community leaders across southern Africa to combat poaching. The network established training camps where rangers shared tactics for tracking poachers and dismantling traps, significantly reducing illegal activity in the region. Bwabwata's success drew researchers from around the world, who studied its thriving ecosystems and published findings that shaped global conservation policies. Years later, Thandi retired, passing her ranger badge to a young woman named Kendi, whom she had mentored from her first patrol. But Django's legend endured. Visitors to Bwabwata spoke of a mighty lion with a scarred foreleg, leading his pride through the grasslands with unyielding grace. Tour guides pointed out Django's haven, where the iron sign still stood, now weathered but proud. The park flourished, its wildlife populations rebounding under stricter protections and community support, all sparked by one lion's survival and one ranger's courage. Thandi, now living in a small village near the park, often returned to Bwabwata as a guest. On one such visit, as she stood by the Marula Grove, she saw a familiar silhouette on the horizon. It was a young male lion, his mane just beginning to thicken, bearing a striking resemblance to Django. The lion paused, his amber eyes meeting Thandi's across the savannah. For a moment she felt Django's presence, as if the old lion's spirit lived on in his air. The young lion let out a soft chuff, then turned and vanished into the grass, carrying the pride's legacy forward. Django's influence extended far beyond the savannah. In the years following his rescue, Thandi became a mentor to a new generation of conservationists, leading workshops across Namibia and beyond. Her story inspired a scholarship program for young women in rural communities, encouraging them to pursue careers in wildlife protection. One of the first recipients, a determined teenager named Zawadi, joined Bwabwata's ranger team, patrolling the same trails Thandi once did. Zawadi often spoke of Django, crediting his story with giving her the courage to face the dangers of ranger life. The legacy grew stronger with time. A conservation trust, named Django's Legacy, was established to fund anti-poaching initiatives across southern Africa. The trust supported the training of tracker dogs, the deployment of satellite monitoring systems, and the creation of safe corridors for migrating wildlife. Bwabwata became a pilgrimage site for conservationists who came to learn from its success and pay homage to the lion, whose survival had sparked a movement. The trust also funded a mobile education unit that traveled to remote villages, teaching children about wildlife conservation through stories, games, and interactive exhibits. The unit featured a life-size model of Django, crafted by local artists, which became a favorite among the children. These efforts fostered a new generation of stewards, ensuring that Bwabwata's wildlife would be protected for decades to come. On quiet evenings, Thandi would sit outside her home, gazing at the stars that blanketed the Namibian sky. She often thought of Django, his amber eyes a vivid memory that warmed her heart. She knew his spirit still roamed the heart of Bwabwata, watching over the savanna and its creatures. And though she no longer walked its trails, Thandi carried his story with her, a testament to the power of a single act of bravery, a bond between human and beast that no trap could ever break. The story of Django and Thandi became a cornerstone of Bwabwata's identity, woven into its culture and shared with every visitor. Park rangers wore patches embroidered with a lion's silhouette, a subtle nod to Django's enduring presence. Annual festivals celebrated the park's wildlife, with music, dance, and storytelling sessions that retold Django's tale under the starlit sky. These events drew tourists from around the world, boosting the local economy and reinforcing the importance of conservation. Thandi's influence reached even the halls of government. Her advocacy led to stricter anti-poaching laws in Namibia, including harsher penalties for illegal hunting and trafficking. She testified before lawmakers, her voice steady as she recounted Django's story and the broader fight to protect Namibia's wildlife. Her efforts helped secure protected status for additional swaths of land, creating buffer zones around Bwabwata that safeguarded its ecosystems. Somewhere deep in the heart of Bwabwata, Thandi knew Django's spirit still roamed, his amber eyes watching over the savanna under the endless Namibian sky. His legacy lived on in the thriving pride, the empowered communities, and the rangers who carried his story forward. And for Thandi, that was enough, a reminder that a single moment of courage could ripple through time, weaving a bond between human and beast that would endure forever. If you were moved by this tale of courage, connection, and the wild's enduring spirit, please like and subscribe for more unforgettable stories from nature's heart. Your support helps us bring these extraordinary adventures to life.